Alright, so what we're going to talk about right now is the carb cycling nutrition plan, and specifically for losing fat. Alright, so when we're talking about losing fat, the two things that pop up are A, number of calories you're taking. Obviously, you need to burn more calories than you're taking in, and that's going to provide some sort of deficit. The body's going to have to look towards, hopefully fat as a source to supply those extra calories. The second thing is, what are the sources of those calories? So when we're talking about the sources, we have three options. We have proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. I'm just going to cover these briefly. Ideally, from an aspect of protein, you're looking for like a 1-to-1 ratio of grams of carbohydrates to pounds of lean mass. So let's say you weigh 140 pounds and you're about 25% body fat. That means you're about 35 pounds of fat on you, which leaves you about 105 pounds of lean mass. Okay, bones, organs, muscles, stuff like that, brains. And so you would need about 105 grams of protein per day, and that's assuming you're very active. It actually drops down a little bit if you're relatively inactive, but if you're trying to lose weight, I'm assuming you're active. And one of the best sources is going to come from animal sources. So we're talking lean sources of protein, fish, beef, chicken, turkey, but also eggs and dairy fit in there, assuming you don't have any allergies to them. The next is fats. Okay, I would consider the best sources of fats to be coconut oil, butter, and olive oil. We try to limit the excessive consumption of polyunsaturated fats. We all know, familiar, or should be somewhat familiar with omega-3. So, if you're either taking supplements or you're eating enough fatty fish, you're going to be getting that. But in terms of like cooking, typically coconut oil, butter, and then if you're using something like a salad dressing or anything like that, and hopefully you're making that at home, olive oil. All right. So now we're going to start talking about carbs. And the take-home points on this is that when we're talking about losing fat, if you've ever been on a stationary bike or anything like that, they have like a fat burning zone. All right. The body will always preferentially burn carbohydrates over protein or fats. In fact, really, I don't think the body will start breaking down protein in terms of like stored muscle tissue and stuff like that unless you've been without food for about 36 hours. Okay, that's some of the literature that I've read. So unless you've been on some sort of fast for 36 hours, you really don't have to worry about your body burning down protein. And obviously, we want to be burning your body's fat as a source. So one thing to keep in mind is, as long as you're taking in high quantities of carbohydrates in your nutrition plan, whatever nutrition plan that happens to be, your body's always going to burn those preferentially over body fat. Now, there's something called a fat burning zone on these stationary bicycles. I'm not going to use this as a forum to talk about that, but you need to understand that your body always burning some amount of fat and some amount of carbohydrates. All right. Ideally, your body burns the highest percentage of fats when it's, unfortunately, the least active. Okay, so sleeping is when you actually burn the highest percentage, but unfortunately, you don't burn a whole lot of calories while you're sleeping. Versus a very, weightlifting, what they call anaerobic exercises, sprinting, things like that, is you burn the highest percentage of carbs. But if you take those carbohydrates out of your nutrition plan, your body's going to be forced to burning fats. So that's a preferential. And you want to be in that fat burning zone, so to speak, by eliminating carbohydrates out of your nutrition plan. Second thing is, when you consume protein, it's broken down into amino acids, and it's used by the body to make hormones, enzymes, muscle tissue, all sorts of great things. When you take in fats, without going into too much detail, unless it's a short or medium chain fatty acids, all long chain fatty acids, like in olive oil or beef, chicken fat, any of that stuff, is actually put directly into storage. Okay, it just goes straight from, not getting into it, but it goes into storage. Carbohydrates are put into storage as well. And your body stores it as glycogen. And there's a limited number of parking spots. Okay? So if you're consuming large quantities of carbohydrates, once all those parking spots are full, the body, those carbohydrates are broken down back in the liver, broken down or turned into triglycerides, and then put in a long-term storage, fats, okay? So one of the things you want to do is always make sure that there's always a couple of parking spots full. One way of thinking about this is like a sponge. Your liver and your muscle tissue is like a big sponge, and as you continue to eat carbohydrates, that sponge fills up. Well, once that sponge is full and there's no extra room, just like pouring water, and just if a sponge is full of water and you keep pouring water onto the sponge, it's not going to absorb more. Once it's full, it's full. So all those excess carbohydrates are turned over into fatty acids and stored as fat. So we want to limit the amount of carbohydrates that we take in, at least to something that we know we can use. And the last part is a particular carbohydrate called fructose, found in fruit sugar, high fructose corn syrup, table sugar. It's a half table sugar. Is only broken down and stored in the liver. So there's a limited amount of parking spots. So that's been one of the challenges with high fructose corn syrup as a sweetener, is there's only so many parking spots in your liver, and all that excess fructose is being converted over into fat. So we really want to watch our consumption of fructose. So we don't want to be carb phobic, but we do want to watch what we take. So here's how this is going to work is, on Monday, you're going to take in 20 grams of carbohydrates, all right? Tuesday through Saturday, you're going to get 50 grams each day. So 50 grams on Tuesday, 50 grams on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Sunday, you can jack that up to about 100 grams. And then when you look at the ensuing table that we'll give you, you'll know where this is going to come from. But basically, when we say 20 grams, it's just lean proteins and vegetables. All right? 50 grams is going to allow you one medium piece of fruit, okay? And then the rest will be vegetables. And then Sunday is going to allow you to indulge in something. So if there's something you've been wanting, you can have bread, you can have pasta, potatoes, rice, whatever it is that you want. Limited, but you can kind of step it up. But so that's it. And then ideally, for any nutrition plan to work long term, you have to understand it's about getting a skill set. So being lean, for the rest of your life, is just about having a skill set. So we should be learning something from every single nutrition plan. There's a skill set, take homes, okay? A is we want to understand what carbs are, okay? We want to understand where these sources are coming from. I think people don't really understand how many carbs come in some of their favorite food items, all right? So as you go through this, you're going to learn where your best sources of carbohydrates are coming from, okay? Second thing is, I want to look at the best options for fat loss, okay? It's really hard to burn fat when you're consuming large quantities of carbohydrates. I've tried a variety of different nutrition plans and worked it, and this is really one of the best go-to nutrition plans I have, because once you can get your carbs out of your diet, then all of a sudden you put your body in that fat burning zone. You're going to force your body to use fat as a source of energy. And then the last thing, and it's kind of a secondary, but the effects of carbohydrates on you and your psyche. When you come in, you might feel a little sluggish on these days. You actually get used to it fairly quickly. And what it is you're teaching your body how to get off of burning carbs, okay, and start burning fat. These days, actually pretty easy. But when you take your carbs up, and especially if you start looking for things like rice, potatoes, pasta, you'll notice a sort of sluggishness that might occur. It doesn't always occur, but you might get that kind of a slowdown. And that's the effects that carbohydrates have on you. And so this is kind of an aside, but if you have something that's going on the next day and you need to be clear-headed first thing in the morning, one of the last things you want to do is consume carbs in the evening, because it raises serotonin levels and you just wake up feeling groggy. All right, so you want to have a clear head the next morning. You want to get carbs out of your nutrition plan the evening before. All right, versus if you just want to sleep in, relax on a Sunday, then Saturday night, go ahead and get your carbs in, right? Late at night. But you just want to understand the effects of carbs. All right.